Tristan's going to get on.
Nice.
We're live. He's going to be in his truck.
Cool.
Just Heather and I today until Tristan gets on here. We got to get some things above us, like some sponsors. Anybody want to sponsor us? We got one viewer. Who is it? Put your name in the chat.
With our
comment in the chat. One viewer.
Oh, who is it? I bet you it's Wendy. Let's guess. Wendy. Or Charlie Michaels.
Charlie Michaels.
Yes.
All right.
Or CJ.
Could be CJ. Coach's Corner. We've been doing it. We've been successful with consistency.
Yeah.
That's my goal. Even though yesterday, Heather was like, I thought we were doing one after the quarterfinal workouts. Yeah, we're doing that one too.
All right. I'm pretty sure you said we were going to make it on Wednesday instead.
I know.
But
I didn't say that, but it was okay.
But now you get two.
Oh, it's Wendy.
I knew it. Dang. Yes. Nice.
All right. One viewer.
She watching from the airport?
Coach's Corner. Probably. Nice. On the airplane.
That's solid.
If you pay she probably had to pay for internet. She got to do work. She got to do school projects, school assignments. Yeah, we're going to talk about what is coaching. Oh, here we go. Device not connected. Tyler, he's coming in.
Wendy says yes from the airport. Nice.
Hey,
I knew it.
Ethan, hello. From the airport. Oh man, I thought you were gonna be in your truck.
Yeah, change of plans.
We should just go outside and get in the truck and just
go on. You gotta be in the truck. School assignment. Dude, is that a belt? Like a martial arts belt tied around your door?
No, it's the crossover symmetry thing.
Yeah.
I wish. That'd be sick. I did do some MMA once upon a time, but
nice.
Yeah. When I was young and angry and in the army.
Nice. All right. Oh, Tyler. There we go.
He got connected. He's got to turn his chair around though, so then the sunlight comes in from those blinds. We can see him. He's like when you do those interviews and the person's like blacked out to hide their identity.
That's Tyler.
Yeah.
Nice.
He's the mystery coach.
Yeah, Tyler's going to be like that. And then that way, when he writes his blog posts that are really good, everyone just is like, who's this guy? Who is he? All right. We wanted to talk about what is coaching because this came up and I started thinking about it. And I was like, oh man, yeah, what is coaching? Right. So like we could go on an affiliate level and a one-on-one level. And I think we should start in the affiliate level because that one's probably the easiest. Because obviously as people know, you're out here and it goes, all right, you come into the class, you're the coach, you have the lesson plan, which is the workout, the warm-up workout, maybe some strength and skill, maybe a cool down. And then you run the class and then you go home. And then there's more detail in one-on-one coaching. But like, what is coaching, in a class setting? Like, what do you guys think are the jobs and responsibilities of a coach? What does coaching look like? What are some common things CrossFit would tell you coaching is? So then we clear that up too, because it is some of coaching, but I think there are a lot of things that in coaching CrossFit level 1, level 2 don't go over. Because primarily they go over cueing and correcting.
Correct.
So you go and you cue like, hey, get your hips up, right? And then if you don't do it, you show them and you correct them on getting the hips up. We're like, oh yeah, you're not squatting below parallel. Or like drive your knees out, just cueing and correcting. And that is coaching. How much of that is actually coaching, would you say?
Well, I think it depends on the class and the athletes, right? But I think if you have more people that are still learning about CrossFit, learning about themselves as an athlete, how to move their body, you're doing that a lot more.
Yeah.
But I think there are times in classes, right, where a lot of people have autonomy of themselves and their movement. So you may not be seeing a lot of cueing and correcting happening with people who have a little bit more autonomy. But I think,
or even people trying to work on a movement, right? You might tell somebody, hey, chest up, that's your issue.
Right.
And then it's going to take weeks, months, years for them to correct that issue through cueing and correcting.
Yeah.
And they got coaching. And then would you say like, do you have to tell them every single class to get their chest up since you've already had the conversation? Are you a bad coach if you don't?
I mean, I think you need to continually be reminding them.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes when they're moving, they don't actually like you might have been telling them every single day, but they are not watching themselves. So they can think that their chest is up, but it may not be
Right.
up. Right. So it's like constantly reminding them so that that's something that they're drilling and they're thinking about every single time that they're doing X movement.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think you need to tell them every single day, you know, especially if it's like habitual things where like knees out, stuff like that. Also, things might take time. You might have an
Yeah.
athlete that doesn't squat below parallel because of limited range of motion, not because they're not aware that they're not squatting below parallel.
Right.
And then it's conversation like, we got to work on some mobility, get you in better positions so you can get closer to that range of motion that is going to give you more fitness and keep you healthier.
Yeah.
So it's like once you have that bigger conversation, you know, you kind of could just, I don't want to say set it and forget it in that area, but you are a little bit setting it and forgetting it because we had the conversation. So you've been coached and now it's more of accountability
Yeah.
Right.
through the classes.
And it could be like, I think to your point, it could be conversations that you're having after class, right? Where it's like, okay, like 50% of them looked really, really great. We're still like, you're getting there, but this is still the expectation, right?
Mhm.
Where it's like, you're not just like yelling at them in the middle of a Metcon, like, get lower, get
Uh-huh.
lower.
I
Right?
try not to tell anybody in the
Right.
middle of a Metcon,
Right.
other than like when their movements are egregious.
Yeah.
Do you do
Yeah.
that, Tristan? Do you stop anyone?
Only if it's egregious.
Yeah.
If the wheels are coming off to a point where I think they might like injure themselves or drop the bar on somebody's head or something crazy. Other than that, and I try to do a good job of knowing the people who are going to come to my classes, and I coach very routine classes.
Yeah.
So I usually have a good idea, and we'll just set it beforehand, like, hey, you're not doing that. You're doing this. So that because I know, like, I want them to get some intensity and some stimulus and some of that, working out feel and get that
Conditioning.
conditioning, versus like being limited by
Well,
X,
that's
Y,
also
and Z
good.
movement.
Yeah, that's also a good thing. So like if you're doing barbell drills in the beginning of the class or warm-ups, I mean, barbell drills are pretty common in most CrossFit gyms, right? Not racing through those, doing them all together. Heather brought up a good point, and I got to go back to do this because I give physical demos and then I will talk about what I expect, and then I will let people do it on their own, and I'll walk around and give corrections. And people are doing it well. I'm just like, good job, keep going. You're practicing. But Heather does like, because I used to do this old school where everyone would do the lifts together. Like, okay, let's go into position one, ready, go. And I've gotten out of the habit of doing that because I don't really enjoy it. I like getting in and one-on-one coaching as much as I can, but Heather likes it and does it and has asked me to go back to doing that, which I think will be good for our gym for a little while, and then kind of diverge away from that a little bit and come back. And I think there's a good ebb and flow there. The hard part is pulling people in who are so used to doing things on their own as a coach, but it's more of like a team effort. We're all doing the team drills together. So like coaching styles can change, I think, how people perceive what is coaching or what this thing is meant to do at this time, whether that's a warm up or barbell drills or drills in the class, like if you're doing gymnastics or breakaway parts where you're doing like strength, and it's like, hey, do this on your own. We're going to do it for 20 minutes and you got to achieve this thing. I'm here. I'm going to walk around and help, which I think sometimes people perceive that autonomy as like not coaching.
Right. Well, and I also think though, like, because I mean, I enjoy doing that because I think no matter what your level is, you're still going to get benefit over like going over positions, understanding like what your movement is, especially in the clean and the snatch, and the jerk. And I think a lot of times people forget that and they're just like, oh, okay, I'm just going to go through the motions and do my thing. And there can always be movement perfected, especially in those lifts. And there's value in them slowing down, understanding what their body's doing, going through tempo in those positions so that they're actually getting better at that instead of just like ripping it and knowing like what their body is just teaching them or has figured out to do, but trying to dial that back and getting their bodies to figure out better positions.
Yeah. And the coaching probably just comes more from, in that regard, the program design.
Yeah.
Like what is written in the warm up, making sure it makes sense. And then also the drills that are selected to practice, even though like often, snatch, clean and jerk drills are almost all the same. There's small variations depending on, whether you learn from Catalyst or Cal Strength or the Bulgarians or whatever, like, but most of it's like snatch, pull, high pull, turnover, power, muscle, that
Yeah.
kind of stuff.
But I can also argue that GPP classes still need to learn that, understand that. I don't
Yeah.
think that they're fully autonomous where they're weightlifters and they can just kind of come in and just do the warm up. Like they don't.
That's what I mean is I feel like sometimes even just the warm up, like if it's do 5 of these movement for 3 sets, that's like the coaching, especially if your gym is writing their own programming. And
Mhm.
even if they're not writing their own programming, that's still the coaching. It's like, you're going to do this thing and we're going to go through these patterns and work on it. And then like that's baked in as coaching. It's like not even like a human physical coaching. It's almost like AI coaching.
Mhm.
Like it's in there for you for that day for a reason. And then we're going to add more value by cueing and correcting the
Right.
movement selection, which is crazy because I think because you could have someone come into, let's say, open gym and do the program design, and they'll still get, if the program design is written and even if we're buying it and just implementing it, or if we're writing it, whatever the gym is, and we're looking over it, our intentionality behind that is giving you coaching. So you're still going to get progression and get better because we're overseeing, like Tristan said, you've built the rapport with the people that you coach most commonly, and you can give valuable feedback to the program designer, or if you are the program designer, to implement better programming and better drills and better work that is meant for those people,
Mhm.
which is like an immense part of coaching that I think sometimes like people come into a gym don't see.
Yeah, I agree.
It's pretty crazy. What else in coaching classes? I wish Meg was on. Meg had some good ones. I think Meg had interpersonal skills and interpersonal relationships. She was talking about that with me a little bit. Meg's one of my one-on-one athletes who's out here for quarters, and she's really cool. But she didn't want to come on. She's like, you don't have a microphone for me. I'm gonna go for a walk. I was like, okay.
Sounds like an excuse.
It's fine. She'll watch this later and be like, oh. But yeah, I think that like coaching interpersonal skills and knowing your athletes, like Tristan already said, like having those skills of like, I know that this person is going to come in, let's say in 5 days a week, and out of those 5 days, they're going to give me 2 good days. And knowing when those 2 good days are, meaning all systems go, mental, emotional, psychological demands and physical ability, I'm going to get a lot of intensity out of this person. And they're coming in chipper. They got a good attitude. And it's like, all right, today's the day. And then there are days where they're going to come in and they're going to be like, and as a coach, like you might just leave them alone.
Yeah.
You might not even coach them at all. You might say nothing to them about like, hey, how's it going today? Yep. Cool. You're doing a good job. Nice work.
Glad you're here.
Yeah. And like throughout the workout, like, hey, you become their cheerleader, right? Because like cheerleading is part of coaching also. And you're just like, yeah, you're doing good. Hey, good job.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people don't realize that that's coaching.
Yeah. I think part of something I've really learned in the last 3-ish years of coaching is not jamming my beliefs down GPP class members' throats. And just understanding like where somebody's at in their journey. Like we have athletes that come to the classes that I coach who are older, late 40s. They don't move great. They have mobility restrictions, but they really do want to get better at the snatch. And I'm like, all right, like you're not going to like the medicine I got to give you for this. Yeah. But if this is what you want to do, like we're going to get after it together. And like, I spend a lot of time just trying to teach them where they are in space and like get coordination, that stuff, versus other athletes who come to my classes and they could give a shit if they ever do a squat snatch.
Yeah.
So when they come to my classes and like we are squat snatching, I'm like, hey, let's power, or let's do pull plus power plus muscle, and like make some sort of a variation of it that they find entertaining and fun and they get something out of it. Cause they also understand like the class is written, so everybody's on the same page. Right. But a younger me as a coach would have been like, hey,
everyone's squat snatching.
You really got to learn this.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, they really don't, dog. Like, it's okay.
I mean, you still probably explain the value of it. Cause like,
sure.
I mean, I tell people all the time, like snatching is or overhead squatting is such a, I don't know. I don't think it's controversial, but definitely has opinions whether it has value or not within training camps and training space, and whether it's CrossFit or, I mean, it's in the FMS. So the overhead squat does have value as far as mobility, flexibility, but I make sure I tell people that, but I'm not forcing you, like Tristan said, I'm not forcing you to snatch. Like we have often when I'll say like snatch, or I'll say, oh, if you want to power, go ahead.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And we leave it that way. I think the value of exploding through the legs and the hips and the core and something over your head is very important. And that's the piece that I'll cram down people's throat. And if I mean, it's sunny now, if we had a bunch of like kegs and we did strongman over the bar keg throws, I'd be like, yeah, you're going to go outside. You don't want to snatch. You're going to go outside and throw that keg explosively over that bar. And we're going to have a good time doing it because you're going to get the same value as the snatch, just not with a barbell.
It's hilarious you just said that because I've literally made and had athletes go outside with a slam ball and yeet it through our parking lot.
Yeah, same thing.
Doing the exact same thing
Nice.
because they didn't want to snatch.
Yeah. And I think that's important to know. And like that's coaching too. Like people don't realize because what's happening, like, and I think the class, and I want to get to the one-on-one, but like the class is really unique in the fact that like, and I tell Heather this all the time, and it happens to all of us, the world revolves around you, you know? And we've all taken class. I go and take class when I travel for competition stuff. And like when I'm in that class, it's literally like me, just me. Like I know there's other people. Like I would think of like TFX, Wendy's on the chat. So I went out to CrossFit Hutto and took the class, and like there were other people, and I try to, you know, be friendly and everything else. But I'm like in there, I'm like, what's the workout? Okay. And then I'm just like there to smash the workout. And literally the whole time, there could have been nobody else in the room. Like when 3, 2, 1 go happens, like I am aware of the coach, I'm aware of people. And I remember it because it was like echo bike, dumbbell, front rack lunges, some ring muscle ups, dumbbell front rack lunges, echo bike, just like a chipper up and down.
Yeah.
And like you got to share the rings and stuff. But I'm just like, let's go. Like this is go time. This is easy workout. Let's get after it.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people come in and take class and have the same sensation. So they might not notice that we're coaching them because they're just blacked out because they're getting after it. And that's okay too. Like that's also part of coaching and just being like, hey, good job. You know, like even you have that person that's not having a bad day. You have the person that's having a good day. And there's nothing to say to them. It's like, hey, go faster.
Right.
Like you're doing good. You're crushing it. Go
Yeah.
faster.
Yeah.
Like that was your coaching for the day. You got conditioning. The coach was there to motivate and inspire you. And then the rest of the community there, even though they get blacked out when it's 3, 2, 1, go, you don't even know they're there. I mean, that's part of it too. Like it's pretty interesting, like how that all happens in a class setting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I want to kind of briefly bring up like even just being a coachable athlete, right? We talked about this even last night, right? It's like people are like, I'm not getting coaching, but they're like, they don't want to hear your coaching either,
yeah.
right? So it's like
I'm
you
not
have
getting
to be
coached.
someone.
Well, last week I told you,
right? Well,
what do you
like,
mean?
you have to be somebody who comes in, and even if you're having a bad day, right? Like you're open to the feedback. You're open to like what they're saying, and maybe you can't do that thing or keep the chest up or squat below parallel or whatever. You know, you're working on it, but like being open to like having a coach telling you and reminding you, it's not because they're trying to just be a jerk and be like on you all the time, but it's like that's
Or
like,
even if you're not like open that day, at least appreciating the fact that they're noticing and saying like, hey, remember, keep your chest up, and you're like, fuck off. But then,
right,
you know,
right.
then your mind be like, oh, you know, at least they're looking at me. At least they're looking at me. I'm not feeling it today, but they're looking at me. They know the problem. They're giving me that feedback, you know, or it's like, modifications, right? Tristan said something about that. And it's like, we're here as coaches inside of a class, and all coaches really, like if you have an issue and like an injury, or you can't do something, or you don't want to do something, which is totally fine, you need to go right to the coach after they're done briefing and like people are starting to move around and get set up and say, hey, look, I XYZ don't want to do this or can't do this or whatever. And say, what do you think? This is what I thought I want to do. What do you think about this?
Mm-hmm.
You know, or just be like, if you don't have like, you're not in that, path of your development where like you already have a idea of what you want to do. Like, what do you think I should do for this? Because we're going to give you the thing that most resembles the stimulus, right? So if we have a shoulder dominant thing, let's say like handstand push-ups, but you don't want to go inverted or your neck hurts or whatever. It's like, okay, well, let's start with Z press. Can you sit down and do Z press? Okay. You don't really want to do that. Well, okay, let's just do dumbbell push press. See how you feel with that. Oh, that feels good. Okay, cool. You want to do some dumbbell push press with some handstand holds? We'll do like a 10-second handstand hold into dumbbell push press. That way we get inverted, we hold, and we do some dumbbell push press, and we're good to go. And then we give you a number of reps and time for you to do that. So you're with everybody else. Whereas you might have come up and been like, I don't really want to do handstand push-ups, so I'm going to end up doing burpees. It's like, well, hold on. Those are not the same thing. Like, and it's not the same stimulus. And yes, it is fitness, but it's not going to give you the bigger picture and long-term outcome that we're trying to cultivate and basically like, yeah, cultivate and what does it mean when you bring things aggregate, when you bring things together to give you a better, outcome down the road 3, 4, 5 months. Because if you're just always doing burpees, like, yeah, you'll get better at burpees, but like what happened to your shoulder endurance, or your vertical pressing?
Right.
Where did that go? And that's the thing, is like coaches know how to make these modifications. We know how to match these things or break things down and get creative. Like there's so many times we have people who coach at other gyms have come in, become members, not coaching, and are like, wow, I've never done that before. I legit am like, well, you've been coaching and you've never, like, okay, that means I'm creative enough. So I actually pride myself on my creativity to match pairings and movement patterns, because I'm looking at the movement pattern, not just like the muscle groups and everything else, or the stimulus of the workout, or like the high intensity of it all.
Right.
I'm looking at like, what is the joints? What are the action of the joints? So there's a shoulder flexion extension, elbow flexion. Like, because I have a big background in anatomy, I'm breaking it down in my mind quickly and going, okay, well, they don't want to do this, but we need to do this. Or like, oh man, it gets crazier. Because like, even I was watching the TTT Dude Learns a Ring Muscle Up. Did you watch that, Tristan?
I haven't yet.
We watched it, but like Mia Gianelli goes over how important it is, and I go over this all the time to people, of the top of the ring support and the bottom of the ring support. And if you can't do those, you shouldn't even be swinging on the rings to try and learn a ring muscle up. And I agree.
Oh yeah, totally.
That's the receiving position or the start position of a ring dip, and the finish position of a ring dip at the top. So like, as coaches, we know where the start and finish positions are, and you need to strengthen those isometrics first and then train the transition. So sometimes the complexity of you just wanting to change a movement because you don't want to do that, or why, you don't even understand how it translates into overall health and structure and building blocks of getting more fit. And you just didn't ask. You're just like, oh, I'm just going to do this instead of that.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point, especially, I mean, just isometrics in general as a substitute or a changed movement in a Metcon setting.
Oh, yeah.
Sure, it's going to limit the intensity, this, that, and the other, but you brought up a really good point with the ring muscle up with the bottom position. If you can't hold yourself in the bottom of a ring dip for 20 to 30 seconds, you have absolutely not earned the right to catch your body weight there, plus the forces of gravity.
Right.
To try a ring muscle. Like, I'm sorry, you're going to blow your shoulder off.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really good point, because that's something I do every now and then with athletes is handstand hold. Just practice getting up on the wall and picking up a hand.
Yep.
Right. Just to start to learn how to coordinate that. And sure, it's going to limit the intensity a little bit, but I mean, for fuck's sakes, like, it's fine. Like, they're still getting better.
For today, it'll be okay.
Yeah, exactly.
It could also be intense because it's a hard skill for them.
Correct.
Like, it doesn't necessarily mean that like speed intensity, but as far as neurologically, like, it could still be very hard.
Keep talking. I'm pull some else. Keep going.
So I don't know.
I think that's a really good point. Like, oftentimes I feel like, especially depending on the demographics of your gym and the athlete's age and training level, I look for opportunities to challenge them neurologically more often than just hammer their cardiorespiratory system. Because oftentimes for those people, that's not their limitation.
Right.
Like, if you're, a 42-year-old who comes to CrossFit Greater Heights and you can go hit a sub 6 minute mile or a sub 7 minute mile, and you have like a really good, 5K or whatever, like, there's other things that are probably lower hanging fruit for you. Like, what does the bottom of your squat look like? Can you coordinate your body through higher complexity movements? So taking the opportunity to work on neurological stuff is going to feel really hard for them.
Yeah.
And less painful.
I'm going to screen share secret information here.
Ooh, I love secrets.
Yeah, it's CJ's training. Okay. You guys see this?
Yeah.
All right. So single arm elevated handstand. This is an elite athlete who is training for semifinals, and we're getting ready to do handstand walk stuff. I wonder if I can zoom this. Oh, where's it? Nope, that didn't work. Zoom out. And I pulled this. You still see that?
Single arm elevated handstand hold. Yeah.
I got to share the other screen now.
Dang. Oh, it opened it in another tab.
Yeah. Boo.
Boo.
Let's go back. share this tab instead. Perfect. Okay. Now you can see it. Technology is shared now. All right, cool, cool.
Nice.
Okay. So I'm giving this to an athlete. I mean, they're an elite athlete training for, and it's literally this. This is all they're going to do is they're going to hold this. And I'm going to have her on 245s. Now this lady gets a little crazy. So she goes out. Again, that's it. Just a hold. Now she does her legs out. You don't have to do that. I put that in the notes of like, you don't have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's, I mean, people are like, I don't want to do handstand holds with heels on the wall. Because I said if this was too challenging freestanding, put your heels on the wall and do this. And all we're trying to do is get her to a point where she's shifted in her handstands because she's going to walk over the ramp. Stairs, and we're going to practice that. And, that's a hard thing to do, like a really hard skill. And I think like general population people don't see that elite practice.
Mm-hmm.
And they think like, oh, holding a handstand and a hold on the wall is subpar.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else is doing this. I don't want to do that.
Right.
And then I have this elite athlete going to semifinals doing this drill. So they disconnect too sometimes of coaching. Like we're trying to coach you and you're just like, I don't want to do that. That's subpar.
Yeah.
Like my coaching just might as well go out the window.
Two things jumped to my mind when you said that. One, I don't think people have any idea the amount of time elite athletes spend working on doing boring shit. And the other side of that is,
I mean, it's boring, but it's hard. Go try it right now.
right. The other side of that is, and I have been preaching this for years, if you're an adult, your neuroplasticity sucks.
Oh yeah.
So like, it's going to take a lot of time for you to learn something, especially just trying to do it. So if we can regress the neurological load and make it easier for you to pick up the breadcrumbs along the way, it's going to help a ton. But people have no understanding of the fact that most of the people we coach every day, when you're trying to learn a brand new skill, it's just going to take forever.
Yeah.
Because your brain is not as neuroplastic.
You guys ever have any questions? Put them in the chat. That's true for any of these lives we do.
I mean, that's so true. It's like I have a couple athletes that are older wanting to compete and working on higher level skills. And it's like this, and they're doing it 1 to 2 times a week. And they've been doing it since, I don't even know, 6 months, 9 months. And they're just like, I still don't have it. I'm like, it could take you 3 years. Like, I don't know, like, or 2 years, right? It's like, I think trying to just understand that it's going to take the time that it's going to take too, right?
The analogy I try to give people, like Tristan's talking about neuroplasticity, and some people are like, what the heck? Is you got a freeway at rush hour. That's your brain to your muscle.
Mm-hmm.
Clogged up. It's jammed up. And you're trying to go in there with your construction crew and build a whole nother lane.
Right.
So then you can free up that freeway system.
Yep.
Just imagine that in life of like when you see that happen on the road and how difficult that is for them to, fix the road, fix the freeway, or add another lane. It's the same difficulty of you. Like if you've never walked on your hands, well, that's going to be tough.
Mm-hmm.
You've never done bar gymnastics of any type, or you didn't play on the playground on the monkey bars. Like you just didn't do that as a kid. You played soccer instead. Well, that stuff's going to be hard. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I think too, and I know you guys know this as coaches, the conversation I have to have a lot of times with athletes is, hey, I don't want you to practice handstand walking for an hour today. It's actually going to be better if you practice it for 10 minutes every day, because the frequency is what's going to help faster, especially in the beginning, because you don't have any ability to do any kind of actual volume or intensity at a time.
Right.
So I've had athletes, who are working on crossover double unders or handstand, freestanding, this, that, and the other. And they're like, if I have to do 10 minutes of pirouette practice one more time this week, and I'm like, hey, I'm sorry. It's just what it is, man.
Yeah.
It's tough. And then like the GPP class, because it is so varied often, right? Because you got to keep it varied, a wide exposure of things. It's harder to do that with people. I mean, we do have a lot of extra credit in our training program for our general members. We got a lot of cool down stuff. Like, so it's all there. That's the other thing too, is like, and this will lead into our one-on-one coaching. A lot of the coaching in a CrossFit gym, whether people realize this or not, even CrossFit coaches, whether they realize this or not, I would say 80% of the coaching is in the program design.
Preach, brother.
You could argue about that percentage, but it's high.
Yeah.
A high percentage of what you're getting from your $150 to $229 a month, because that's how much it is across the nation, depending on where you live. That's what you're getting. That's what you're paying for. And that is a lot of the coaching, is what is on that whiteboard or in the app that you're using for training. Then it goes into, like we said, the most emotional intelligence, knowing the athletes, choosing the right modification or scaling options in that class time, and having the conversation with the coach, looking at the bigger picture. Coaches knowing the bigger picture of like where we're going, what we're trying to do, what you're trying to do, what you need to work on, and then being creative in their thoughts and mind of handstand push-ups also equal this, and this.
Mm-hmm.
And they build the pathway, the neural pathway, and the strength to do handstand push-ups.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then you're like those construction workers on the freeway, just building it along.
Mhm.
So it's pretty interesting. And I think the people who come into a CrossFit gym, and even your one-on-one athletes, like Heather was saying, need to be really open and grateful and appreciative for those things, and less frustrated. And be frustrated, but just don't take it out on the coach, because they're doing the best they can.
Right.
Often, you know. What else? What else is coaching? A one-on-one capacity. What are the jobs, tasks, and duties of a one-on-one coach beyond the program design?
I would say, well, back to what you're saying with the program design, I would say that the more or better your interpersonal skills are with your athletes, the more buy-in to that 80% of the program design that you'll have. And I think that's a big thing, because you can write the best program in the world, but if your clients don't trust you, believe in it, whatever it is, they're not going to buy in. They're not going to stay with it. But if you can get that, you can also write the worst programs in the world. But if they trust you and you tell them to run a 10K and finish with jumping off of a cliff, but they trust you, they'll do it. You know, so I think that
it doesn't mean it works.
Yeah.
Like they'll do it, but
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's a good
Yeah.
point. They gotta, people gotta buy into the training. It's important. But yeah, I've watched that over and over and over though. People buy into training that doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's unfortunate. It's really hard, I think in CrossFit for the training not to work. I think it would be more specific. Like if you have somebody who wants to do weightlifting, or a high level CrossFitter, or you got somebody prepping for a marathon or half marathon, like something super specific that is more single modality. The thing about CrossFit is, because it's so constantly varied and there's so many different tests, like this last year, the Open, we've never tested those tests. We've never really done those combinations. We may have done those combinations in a class or in your training program, but you've never done that specific thing under that intensity, that emotional load on that day.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no real way to train for that. Whereas you might run the Boston Marathon was yesterday, right? You might run the Boston Marathon and the weather is exactly the same. I mean, it was 108 degrees yesterday for some reason, or somewhere. No, that wasn't it. That was some other place. There was some other, sorry, there was some other marathon happening yesterday that was like
so hot.
But like the weather, the course, like all that stuff, like it all ends up being like kind of the same. Whereas like CrossFit doesn't always be the same.
Mm-hmm.
So because you have all the transitory variance and movement, that helps you with that thing. But it's really hard to like pinpoint and put the needle, like thread the needle really well. So you could have a varied program that is just like hitting all these things and you'll seemingly do better. But that's just like because you're throwing a lot of things into the melting pot. Whereas like if you're, again, going back running a marathon, like you have to run the distances, the right paces, you have to work on those things, like, or you're not going to hit that goal time. And then your nutrition has to be on point. But there's only like 3 or 4 variables that you really have to work with that to be successful. And if you don't work with those 4 variables, you won't be successful. Whereas like CrossFit, because there's so many variables, you can work on a lot of different things and still be successful. So sometimes there's this like misconception of what good programming is.
Yeah, I think part of the trap people fall into with that is also the quality of program needed to improve somebody early on in their journey versus with a higher training age. Like,
that's true.
It's like people start CrossFit and they, even if they're not even like super young, if they're even in their late 20s, early 30s, but they don't have a big training background, they can do the worst programming ever and they're going to get exponentially better at everything
Yeah.
for like a year plus.
Yeah.
right? Versus somebody who has a 10-year training age, even if they have lagging metrics in one domain or another, you've still been training 10 years. So the rules are different.
Yeah.
And that's something people seem to just be willfully ignorant in the CrossFit space still at large. And
Or
it
just
drives me nuts.
want to ignore it.
Right.
I can get better. I can get better doing this. No.
Yeah, it's just
I think
so that's something that
that's
I
also
see a
interesting
lot.
too of like I talk about like this idea of the athlete like cycle. So like
Mhm.
you start out here and you can do anything and you're gonna get good. And then to get even higher in your peak, you really got to get specific in what your problem is. And then once you fill in those gaps and those holes, it's actually pretty good to come back down to what I call being dumb fitness and just like doing hard CrossFit fitness, then finding more holes there and then going back up and like climbing that mountain again, getting better and being real specific. Like let's say like you do it like Noah, our coach is getting coached by Marissa now because he wants to get better at fitness. And when some of the coaches want to get coached, we bring him on, and he's not very strong. So he's going to have to go so high up the ladder of strength and CP battery to get better at those things because he gets rocked when the 135-pound thruster comes out. But if it was 50-pound dumbbells, he's fine, you know? And so like he is going to go up this peak, really get specificity in that. And then he's got to come back down and do a lot of dumb stuff again and be a stupid CrossFitter and just go hard and be a fire breather and then figure out where the holes are there because that's the game he wants to play and then go back up. I think the same thing is true in like coaching people. People go through like a coaching cycle where it's like you need a lot of coaching or learning. Like you come into a CrossFit gym, you've never done CrossFit. You need to learn the language, you know, then you got to assign the language to I hate that this Apple thing does that every time now. The language and the language of those movements, right? You got to know what a thruster is. You got to know what a hang power snatch is versus a power snatch. So there's a big learning curve of, you know, just the definitions and the words and everything else. So then once you learn that, then you got to learn the movements pretty proficiently. Then you got to learn and build the strength and the loads. And then you got to learn gymnastics, all that stuff. So there's like a lot of coaching or explanation that happens and learning. And then from there, I think they take this step up where they don't really need a whole lot of coaching. They need the program and practice. And they need to come in for repetition because you move pretty well. Let's just say they have no limitations, like movement limitations. They learn all this stuff. They squat well, they press well, they're hitting ranges of motion correctly to standard, and they're building strength. That person, and they learn toe to bars and chest to bar, right? So they don't have any real bottlenecks, but they can only do like 3-4 reps of something. They're decently strong. Like that person could come into a CrossFit gym for a year and a coach could say nothing to them if the program is good, except for encourage them and like check in with them. And they will get really good and don't need a coach. But then, like Tristan's saying, is after that year and a half, they're going to find a bottleneck, you know, like Noah's like, oh man, because he's been doing a general program and writing for himself and everything else. And he was happy with his fitness. And now he wants to take the leap into competitive fitness. And Marissa's going to coach him. And I think that's what happens. And I think that's where like people need to understand these like cycles, you know, and if you are that athlete coming in a class where you're this athlete getting one-on-one coaching, there might be a phase in training and it could be a long period of training where your coach has nothing to say to you. It's, you know, it's practice. Just shoot the basketball again from the free throw line. Now go to the 3-point line, shoot it. Okay. Go out here, shoot it. Here are the drills, practice the drills. Come back to me once you've mastered these drills. Well, wait, isn't there something I need? No. Do the reps. Come back when you can do the reps.
Yeah.
And I think that's hard for people to grasp and understand. And they're like, I'm not getting coached. I'm not this. You're not giving me any feedback. It's like the feedback is do the work.
Yeah.
I feel like I go through that a lot with athletes, especially in our preseason cycles, because we start writing more couplets in particular. And I will specifically tell somebody to do something stupid on one of the movements. Like I want you to see where the edge is and what happens to this other movement when you do that. And
I want to sustain, Tristan. I want to sustain.
Well, the one that the conversation that always has to be had is they do that and then they're like, well, my time sucked.
Yep.
God,
speak.
I'm like,
Let's go. Preach.
I'm like, dog, I know.
Yeah.
But I needed that data. I needed to see what happens because
And you
now
That intensity.
They needed the data.
and
too.
they needed well
There's a
getting
lot.
athletes to understand that like I need you to be super fit and a supercomputer at the same time
Yeah.
is just another thing in and of itself. But it's like you said, going through that ebb and flow of, and I think you brought up a really good point because when you raise that log jammed metric, it's going to change everything else
Yes.
in a Metcon.
Yes.
Right. Like I had an athlete who is coached by one of our coaches. She was at the gym one day. She was like, I think my cardio is going down. And I said, what are you talking about? She said, well, like my bar muscle ups have gotten a lot better and now I can do more repetitions at a workout. But when I come off the bar, I'm just winded. And I was like, you're doing more work.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's not rocket science. It's okay. Like this is a normal learning curve you're going to have to go through.
Guess what? We made you more fit and now it's harder.
Yeah.
Right. She was,
And
because her example was she's a really great runner. So she was doing bigger sets on bar muscle ups and then she felt like she couldn't run as fast. And I was like, well, you're actually able to express work capacity on the bar now.
Yeah.
So when you come off the bar, you're like, whew, shit. And that's just a normal evolution, but it's so hard for athletes to see that when they're in it.
Well, what's funny is like they want the coaching then after that of like, how do I make this better? It's like, we do the same thing we just did, just better. And also you're going to get better at bar muscle ups. You're going to learn how to breathe the same way you learn how to breathe better in running. Like you need more exposure and volume. Like that's a good place to be. And you want to push those efforts and you want to make the running harder, if you think you're a good runner, maybe you're not because it's hard when you're under fatigue. Maybe you're not as a good runner as you thought. So let's evaluate that also and look at those metrics. And it'd be like, oh, a female running a 6:05 mile. Okay. Yeah, you're a great runner.
Good runner.
It's the demand of the bar muscle ups. So let's keep attacking the bar muscle ups and that will get better and your running will be fine. Has nothing to do with running because we looked at those metrics, but they take them and they go, no, that's the same. No, it's not. No, but it is. I'm a bad runner. I need to get better running. No, you need to get better bar muscle ups.
The better you get at CrossFit, the harder it gets. So
that was actually, I was going to make a
Marissa
joke
said,
about
wait,
that.
I'm not just supposed to go dummy and not be aware of reps, movement patterns in my mind. Yeah, definitely not.
Yeah, definitely not.
Well, I mean, I was going to say that was kind of my point of like,
when you're trying to reach your higher than your threshold, you want to black out. But in 99.9% of the other cases of training, you want to be aware of your reps and your movement patterns and your mind and all of those things.
Well, that's what I was going to say, talking about like one-on-one coaching. It's like you get a lot of people that maybe come from like a GPP or a class setting, and now they're doing one-on-one coaching, and you're like trying to get them to not only like learn about themselves, but like what's your row pace? Like how fast did you row that? Like how many burpees did you do in that minute? How many? Well, I don't know. And it's like, well, so how, if you're not like taking it, it's like, that's coaching, right? That's also teaching them about themselves, learning that, taking those mental notes of themselves while they're doing those workouts so that, we talk about progression. It's like, okay, can you do like 1 second faster on the row, or can you do one more burpee or whatever, or coming up on quarterfinals or the open or whatever. It's like looking at workouts and being like, I know I can row 12 calories in a minute. So this is reasonable for me. And
with
so
like, if you don't even know how many burpees a minute you're doing, there's no coaching that's going to happen. Same thing with your rowing. It's like, I can't coach you anything. Good job. Go faster.
Yeah.
Like, what am I going to tell you?
The classic, well, I tried really hard. Like that word tried is so subjective.
Everyone's trying hard.
And I'm like, what does that mean? Like, I don't know how to coach you or give you feedback.
I'm trying hard.
We're all trying hard. I mean, like
I get out there laying on the ground in these intervals with the people. I've been training with the people, the good people. The people. Yeah, dude, every Saturday now I'm like, I'm way outside my threshold. I'm like, I'm done. 2 times now I've like cut last rounds. I'm just saying, that's my volume. I'm done for.
Somebody
walking down the stairs behind Heather.
Somebody at the gym, Courtney and I go to down here because the gym my coach at's a little ways away from us. So we go to a gym down here a couple days a week. One of the members was like, why don't you ever work out with your fiance? And I was like, dog, I can't anymore. Like I can't.
Yeah, you can, but
like I can maybe once a week and then I'm gonna die. So I'm good.
So I work out with the people. But you can't improve and we can't coach you if you're not aware of those metrics. And like Heather's right. That's the biggest learning curve from people going from a blog style program or a class program to one-on-one is that they're most of the time they have no idea. Some people are just really OCD about it and they know everything. They know, their lifts, they know their row
Those are the
times, they know their
outliers.
burpees. Yeah, it's very few.
That was
But
me.
some people do know. So I want to give them credit.
Yeah.
But most people are like, I don't know what I row a 500 at or 1,000. And you're like, okay, well, we got to learn that. And like literally that statement of like, we got to learn that and dial it in. That's the coaching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then until you know all those paces that we're prescribing and you start learning about like, how many calories can I do a minute? How many calories can I sustain for 2 minutes? What does it look like when I row 10, 20, 30, 40, 30, 20, 10? And how do I hold on to those paces? Like learning all of that and us telling you to learn that, that's the coaching. That's all the coaching you need,
It's also remarkable because this isn't something that is, like higher level athletes have. Like one of the athletes I'm coaching right now, she's on a team going to semifinals. It was made very aware in quarterfinals. She's undercutting what she's capable of by a ton.
Yeah.
By a ton.
I got one of those.
And so like in her program design right now, there's at least probably 2 or 3 times a week where I put like a big set of something or a max set of something. And I put in there, you have to fail. You have to fail the last rep. If
Yeah.
you don't, you didn't do it right. I'm just going to make you do it again next week.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care. I'm stubborn. So I'll do stuff like that.
Yeah.
And sure enough, like in a Metcon yesterday, she hit a bar muscle up PR. Like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not actually your PR,
Right.
but it's good for us to know now. So it's not something that, it's just a mid-tier or a beginner level athlete issue. Like there are plenty of people who are very fit.
It's an everyone issue.
It's an everybody issue. Yeah.
It's kind of like this, like Marissa's saying, to get coached, it's like, it's wild not to know. Like, how do you know what to try and do when the movement comes up again? Because even though CrossFit's constantly varied, you're going to row again. You're going to row 50 calories. There, I can tell you right now, in your lifetime, if you continue to do CrossFit over the next 2 years, you will row 50 calories at least 50 times in the next 2 years. So you might as well get used to that. Like it's not unknown and unknowable. You will do thrusters. Maybe the weight's a little different. Maybe the reps are a little different. But you're gonna do thrusters. So you might as well learn how many thrusters can I do at 95-65, which is the most common weight, in 1 minute. That would be a very valuable tool for you. This is coaching right now. If you're listening to this, you're getting coached right now. A very valuable tool would be for you to learn how many thrusters you can do in 1 minute at 95-65. And then as you grow and progress and your coach builds your strength and your power, you then retest or figure out, or you do a workout and you go, I just did 21 thrusters and that took me a minute. So now you have a new metric. And next time they come up, you use those metrics to formulate plans, strategies, and context around your training to improve yourself. And then you ask yourself, I love this one. This is my favorite one, more coaching. Then ask yourself, what if I did 22?
Right. Yeah.
I think a lot of athletes don't understand that enough. And we try to coach them in that. That's also part of the coaching is like, be exploratory and like have wonderment. I love the favorite. I tell a lot of athletes this. When it was either Rich and James Hobart on an interview or one of them. And they were like, yeah, when we started CrossFit, like, we did the workout of the day. And then one day we were like, what if we did 2 Metcons in one day?
Would we die?
Yeah. And then they did 2 and they're like, man, that wasn't so bad. And that's where like all this volume came from Mayhem. Yeah. But like they were wondering what would happen. They were wondering what would happen if they try. And a lot of that is what made them very good athletes. And they were coaching themselves through that process. I mean, Rich coached at Tennessee Tech and also has a kinesiology degree and went to college. So
Rich is smart.
Yeah.
Can everybody just get over the fact that Rich is really smart?
But my point is for him coaching himself, he has enough education and background to coach himself.
Yes.
I don't think a lot of people should be coaching themselves because of that fact. Now, if you went to like Harley coaches himself and I just kind of, put the guardrails on and we talk back and forth and share ideas and I go in and look at his program and say what I say and he says what he says. But Harley went to school for kinesiology. He's got all the certification and education. He's a smart dude. There's no reason why he shouldn't and couldn't coach himself and program for himself. But like Heather, I program and coach Heather. Heather, she's getting good and she went to school for kinesiology, but her experience in CrossFit is lower than Harley's. And because of that, it, and I mean, she could coach herself now at this point, but like a year ago, before you were coaching one-on-one for us,
Mhm.
you couldn't coach yourself.
Yeah.
Now you could, but you couldn't then. And I
Mhm.
just watch that progression. I see people in class or one-on-one athletes who think that I don't want to say like know better, because I know they're not like doing that maliciously, but it's like sometimes you're like, they think they know better. And you're like, dude, that's the wrong thing to do.
Dunning Kruger, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dunning Kruger.
Well, and kind of to Tristan.
Wait, I want to rectify
Oh,
this.
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, Heather.
That's okay.
You could coach yourself now. A year ago, you couldn't. I was talking about old Heather.
That's fair. That's fair.
Sorry.
No, I was gonna say, like, in even part of the coaching, like to what Tristan was saying, is like getting like either teaching the athletes like about failure or like forcing them there. Cause I know, like, people are so afraid of like hitting that red line and, oh, I'm gonna explode and like not finish the round or tell them go on without me or whatever. It's like
Stop bringing that up.
I know.
Let it go.
But it's like that should happen in training. Like that
Yes.
should
Yes.
happen so that when
Yes.
you go out there, like if you're someone who wants to compete at semis, like you want to know that you can do 20 bar muscle ups,
Or you wanna know that you
or
can't.
know you can't.
Right.
Right. It's like, and I think people are so afraid of failure. We say that all the time. It's not failure, but
Right.
like we say that, but it's like, why don't you want to try that? Like, why don't you want to see what happens? And then you'd only do 3 rounds and not 5. Like, who cares?
I really
like,
think this is the most resistant aspect of coaching.
yeah. And that
100%.
so hard.
And
It's so hard to get
Athletes
them
don't
out of
realize
that
that this
their
is
own way.
coaching,
Yeah.
And it
because they're like, oh, I just need you to coach me. You need to tell me what to do. No. What I'm telling you to do is learn about yourself so you know what to do. I'm teaching you how to fish so you can eat for life.
Yeah.
And that's
Well-
why Heather's bringing it up, because that's what it is.
I think arguably this is the most important concept to learn for athletes. Like I have this in my head. Like I view like a mixed modal Metcon, that is a scrimmage. Like that is a
Yes.
sport specific
Practice,
scrimmage, right?
condition.
It's practice, which is fine. Like obviously our sport is training, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, whatever.
Yeah, it
Like-
gets muddled, but
Like I want you to have had so many reps and went to failure, not went to failure, sustained, fell apart, all these things, to where you develop the ability to, okay, I'm doing this right now. I have this next. I can push a little and then I'm going to have to pull, right? And if you look at the best in the world, they can do that based on feel. Like
Mhm.
they're like, I can push in this piece a little bit here. I'm going to have to simmer down on this run
feel
my
'cause they
aerobics,
learned
like,
it.
Mhm.
right. But that's the thing that people don't get through their damn thick skulls is like, you got to break some eggs to make a freaking omelet.
Yeah.
Like they failed and blew up 1,000 times. It's the same thing as you could talk about this at length, Todd. It's the same thing about programming. How many shitty workouts have you and I probably wrote?
A lot
A ton, right? But it's, you gotta,
more than I
like,
like to admit.
you've got to go through that. But athletes don't want that. Like it's almost like they immediately perceive it as like a negative feedback or an I failed. And it's like, dog,
Yeah.
nobody cares until the scoreboard's on. Like,
Well, and think
Let 'em
about
play.
how valuable that is to them as an athlete to do that, say, even once a week
Mhm.
and learn that about themselves, as opposed to like, oh, I got the other 2 rounds. I did it. I walked away. Cool. I checked the box.
Mhm.
Like, sure, you got however many more reps in those 2
Well,
rounds.
yeah, but we could give
like,
you more volume.
You did
later
that,
on.
but you also didn't.
Right.
You also didn't teach yourself to go to a place that you might have to go to when you're competing.
Well, and the beautiful thing about our sport versus like an actual sport with a scrimmage, like if you're doing practice plays and you keep messing it up, then there is actually an issue there in a sport,
Sit
right?
you out.
But
The
in
bench.
CrossFit, if you're doing a testing kind of Metcon, you're like, all right, I really want to see what I can do here. I'm going to push the line here. And you absolutely explode. You still got fitter.
True.
Mhm.
Like
But that-
maybe not the exact fitness we were going for,
Yeah.
right? But something happened.
Mhm.
Well,
So
that's
you're not
what-
going to be worse for it.
That's what makes coaching so hard. And like even in a class and a remote setting is like, we were talking about the stimulus or like changing movements, like you still got fit.
Right.
And that's what's so tough sometimes is like, because of what we do, you go outside and run around the block, you're going to increase your fitness,
Yep.
And I can't argue with that. You do some bar muscle ups, you're going to increase your fitness. You consistently do that, you're going to increase your fitness. But how specifically can we increase your fitness? And that's where some of the coaching comes in too, is like identifying for the athletes what the specificity of it is. It may not even be like, what's the intention? It's like, no, you know that you suck at legless rope climbs. So here's your legless rope climbs in all kinds of variations, because we don't know what variations you're going to get. But
Mhm.
that's it. That was the coaching. Like that stops there. Now get to work. You know, it's so
Right.
crazy to me sometimes because it's like, well, how do I? It's like there's nothing. Like, you know, it's luckily people on site. Like with one of my athletes the other day, I was like, keep your elbows tucked tighter on your legless until you get to the top because they want to do the kip at the top to touch. I'm like, keep your elbows tighter as you're going up. It's going to be more beneficial. That's good coaching. I could do that remotely too. I could watch you on a video and say, keep your elbows tucked when you climb up.
Right.
And if you're like, oh, he's not coaching me, it's like, yeah, I did. That's that's it. That's all you need.
Mhm.
And they don't know. Sometimes people remotely don't know that that's all they need because they're not on site to see how quickly. And it's hard because there's a delay, right? You've already done that session.
Right.
You got to do it again. I'm aware of that delay, but at the end of the day, me telling you that is the same cue I told someone on site and it changed their world. So just next time you do it, try the thing. That's the other thing about like giving singular things or like it. I think people think there's more to sometimes than what we're giving you. It's like all of us, all of us here and a lot of coaches in the coaching space, we could give you one small thing because of our experience and it's going to change your world. There are some coaches who can't do that, but I guarantee you, like all of us would be, hey, do this. And it would magically, like a wizard, change everything. But that's why, you know, TTT has the there are no wizards, is because it does feel like wizardry, but it's because of our experience. It's not that we're going to be able to do that every single time and every single person, but because of our experience and our knowledge, I could look at somebody across the room and be like, hey, do this. And then they're like, whoa, I've never done that before. And it's like, you just got the benefit of me coaching thousands of hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're welcome for my decade.
Yeah. Yeah.
Almost decade and a half, my good friend.
Attaboy.
Close. Well, if you count martial arts, it's 2 decades because I was a martial arts instructor, but that's not almost a decade and a half of CrossFit.
I think there's an other
Can't
side
wait.
of that.
One more year.
I think there's another side of that I think maybe a lot of coaches fall into, where they major in the minors
Yeah.
with certain movements
Yeah.
or certain things. It's like, nah, dog. Like, you don't need to program some crazy new miracle exercise for most people.
Mhm.
1 or 2 good coaching cues, maybe some specific exercise selection to work on the thing or the quality of the thing you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And let her rip for 4 weeks, Tater Chip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I like to get creative just because I don't want people to get bored, but like literally, yeah, I could have CJ walk the stairs, but I just like want other drills that simulate walking the stairs so she doesn't get frustrated. But that's also good coaching. I already know I don't want her to get frustrated. So I write the program like this, and the program is going to be delivered to meet her exactly where she's at psychologically and emotionally. And it will build the skill of walking the stairs and the ramp so she's ready in case they bring it up in semifinals. And it's the deficiency she has. I don't need to like tell her all that.
Right.
I just said, hey, these are the drills we're going to work on you walking the ramp.
But she has that trust.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the thing too.
But I do want to highlight that is coaching. You're
totally
understanding and then putting it into the delivery system of program design because you know all this back end context. That's good coaching.
Yeah.
Because it could damage her psyche if I'm like, hey, I need you to do the ramp and it's going to get frustrating and I'm just going to give you the ramp. Like that's bad coach. That's bad coaching. And that's part of coaching. And then what drills you give that athlete matters in the coaching.
Yep.
And I think people get lost in that too, is like the X's and O's that they get from us in one-on-one design is thought out and it's there for a reason. And not just a physiological reason, a mental, emotional reason. There are movements I take out of people's training because they just can't handle it. And they'll complain for whatever reason. I don't want to say complain. That's like a hard word, but whatever. They'll give you feedback of like, I can't do this. Okay. Then I try to think of something that will, facilitate the same response and substitute it to help them grow. I don't need to tell you all that. It's a waste of my time. It's a waste of your time. I can give you a new drill,
Right.
Well, and even trying to do the best that they can to what is programmed there. Because I see sometimes athletes that are like, well, I just changed the weight. Well, I just did this. And I'm like,
you should have struggled.
You needed to do that load. Like you needed to do that. Like you were trying to be competitive.
Speaking of, Charlie, I like this one. Right. This goes to what you're saying.
The suck to earn the pleasure of completing a good workout. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the suck might be standing and staring at something for a little bit.
Yeah.
you know, or not being
Right,
able to do a
right.
movement.
And that's uncomfortable, right?
And
That's
there
for
could,
people.
and like he's alluding to what we were saying earlier, doing the pain to build more threat, like raise your
Mhm.
threshold. But yeah, there's a lot of things that this word suck could embody. It doesn't
Oh yeah.
go hard all the time. So that was a good one.
Yeah. The boring.
Yeah,
I've
that sucks. Boring stuff sucks.
I've obviously been thinking about like off-season progressions a lot since majority of my athlete season's going to be over or is over, right? In the next week or so.
Yep.
And there's a couple of them, man.
I told an athlete, this is good
It's
coaching.
going to be boring.
This is part of coaching. I mean, this is what you pay for. I told an athlete the other day, yeah, after semifinals, you're going to take a month off.
Mm-hmm.
Blew their mind. Was like, what? No. And then I explained why and everything else. And that's good coaching.
Yeah.
That's part of like I literally could not coach you, like give you any breadcrumbs or anything of coaching for the next like 4 or 5 weeks, because that was the best coaching you just got, is
Mhm.
making you aware that after semifinals, you're going to take a month off and preparing you. How many weeks is that? 6 weeks away?
Yeah.
Telling you 6 weeks out that you're going to take a month off. I'm giving you 6 weeks to emotionally and psychologically get prepared for that.
Yep.
I'm not going to give them nothing, but the principle of like, you got to take time off to look at your goals, reset your life, think about what you want, where you want to go from semifinals, because their goal was to get to semifinals. And it's like, they're going on a team, and it's like, here we are. Like, you did it. Now what? So take that time, reevaluate, and we'll have a conversation. 6 weeks to prep for that.
Yeah. My athletes learned last year, I think, whenever their season ends, that they have to audit their social media, because if I catch them in a gym, I'm on that ass.
Now they're hiding from you.
Yeah,
But
which hey, like I get fine. If you're gonna hide from me, hide from me.
I
But
guess my point to that though is like, they don't recognize that as coaching.
correct.
I think a lot of people don't see that as the coaching. And like when they come to us and like, I need more coaching, because this is where it all stemmed from. Some people were asking for more coaching. And I was like looking at it, I was like, you're getting a ton of coaching.
Mm-hmm.
I think like just, and there's way more facets of coaching that we could have gone into, but I just wanted people to hear an hour of what is coaching and what does that look like.
I mean, one that probably blows people's minds that I've had to do numerous times is coaching is telling your athlete to go home.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You see that one
Yeah.
from like
Like-
CrossFit a lot.
Like, hey, you had a tough day at work, somebody this, somebody that, da 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 da. I had this piece written, gonna be pretty gnarly. You did your lifting. A lot of times I'll give them two options, like, hey, you're gonna go sit on the bike 30 minutes, move, sweat, listen to a podcast, jam out, whatever, or go home.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
Just go home.
in bringing light to like what is going on in like their life that's affecting
And they're still
the time in the gym, you know?
progressing, right?
Yeah.
There's this fallacy, especially in the CrossFit space.
Oh,
Like if I don't train today,
yeah.
dog, you're fine. Just go home. Like it's okay.
That's if it happens like all the time. Right. But like,
Right. Yeah. If
Yeah.
it's chronic, there's an issue.
yeah, but it's not,
But-
you're not talking about those chronic issues. Also like people missing training, telling them
Mhm.
not to do that training. It's like, that training is gone. Move forward.
Yes.
The
The
next day,
makeup training.
you're on.
thing.
Don't do that. You're going to ruin it. Plus,
Yeah.
I get mad because here's another thing of coaching that's happening on the back end that you don't realize is we're balancing the training. If you use your triceps on Monday, I'm going to make sure that we don't use them at minimum till Wednesday. Maybe even sometimes you won't even use your triceps again till Thursday.
Right. Thursday, Friday. Yeah.
You know, so like that is coaching that you don't see that
Mhm.
happens in the program design. And people need to know that too. Like, so you're getting coached a lot.
Yeah. You're messing up my plan, man. Stop.
Yeah. And then you're not, and then me telling you not to do it. Don't get mad.
Yeah.
Don't get mad at me because I said that day is over. Life is on a continuum. We just move forward.
Yeah. It's
Right.
fine.
I gotta do Fridays. No, you're going to do today's.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right. That's good. I think there's way more stuff we can go into, but I hit a lot of
I feel like
different-
this could be like a 10-part
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah, we have to
know.
get out graphs and like explanations.
Oh
and-
gosh. Because we talked none about
Jeez.
program design, basically.
Well, because I don't think most of coaching is program design. I think it can
I
get baked
agree.
into the program design.
Yeah.
But what you're saying is like we've hit on the head is like knowing your athletes, building that into the program design, understanding them when they're on site, feeling them out, seeing how they're doing that day, having interpersonal conversations, giving them time to, in their mind, reconcile that they're going to take a month off after their big event. Why big events are big events? What training events should they actually be doing relative to their fitness level? Like there's so much more that's just conversational that has nothing to do with like actual cueing and correcting.
Yep.
And I think people miss that. That's the biggest point, is like, I don't need to sit back and say, turn your hands over faster and your ring muscle up to be a good coach. That's part of it. But realistically, it's like way more in depth than that. And it's really like weird stuff where like you're just standing around for 40 minutes talking to somebody about their life or why this is affecting that.
Yeah.
And it's not like it's, man, especially in the gym for GPP and on-site people, it's way more conversational, and it has nothing to do with that moment of like, how do I get my snatch better? It's like that happened in my demo and when I was talking about the points of performance,
Right.
and then like giving you some cues. But realistically, it's like, yeah, your snatch isn't better because you need to do snatch pulls, overhead squats, more back squats. We need to get stronger, but we're not going to do that in an hour-long class. So either sign up for one-on-one or hybrid and get those things, or come every day and just be more intentional and understand that I just gave you coaching and gave you the answer, but it may not be the answer you wanted.
Yep.
And you got it. You have everything you need, and just continue to listen, or say, hey, I want to take the next step and train more, and sign up with a coach and get it going.
Yeah.
All right. Like and subscribe. If you guys need one-on-one coaches, we're here. If you are at our gym, we have one-on-one coaching, we have hybrid, we have GPP class and Grey Wolf CrossFit, great coaches who can help you achieve all of your fitness hopes and dreams. Is that a good advertisement?
That was good.
That was great.
I tried to use my
That's good.
advertising voice. All right, guys. Thanks for coming on.
Cool.
And we'll try to do this
Sure.
every Tuesday because I
Love it.
want to be consistent.
We'll be back tomorrow.
Oh yeah, we
Consistency.
will. Oh, sorry, we will be back tomorrow for a special rundown. Tristan won't be here; he'll be talking to his athletes. He said that's totally fine. We don't need his input. And talking about the workouts, we're going to go over the workouts so that our athletes can look at it later on. Also, just general thoughts because people like that.
Do we have a caller?
Yeah, we have a call. We have a call-in show. We have a caller.
Oh, I got so excited.
We could do a call-in show.
That'd be
Maybe
pretty
next
funny.
Tuesday we'll do a call-in show.
That'd be fun.
We'll test it with Marissa.
Yeah,
She's gonna call back over and over.
I call her. But yeah, we'll go over the quarterfinal workouts and just run through them, give people some subside their anxieties a little bit.
Cool.
All right.
Yep.
See you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.